Now, we all know that the Citizens Review Board has no real power, and it hasn't since its inception 5 years ago. But thanks to the push of local activists, this could all change in the upcoming months. Now, if you don't know what the CRB is, that's completely fine. I'll explain right now. So basically, the CRB is a panel of citizens who review completed disciplinary cases of police officers and other issues of importance to the community. Now, it was formed 5 years ago under Mayor Bob Buckhorn at that time because TPD was disproportionately ticketing black bikers under the police chief, Jane Castor at that time, who is now, of course, our mayor. And it was basically formed to enhance trust between the Tampa Police Department and the citizens. So now that you're informed on that, stick with me here, because 2 weeks ago, if you guys remember, Jane Castor made an announcement of new changes that she wanted to make to the Citizens Review Board. And this past Thursday, City Council held a workshop discussing these changes and also made 7 amendments of their own. Now, these aren't official yet. These are just discussions for now, and they will vote on it in the future. But it's important because one of these 7 amendments that City Council proposed was subpoena power for the CRB. And I'll tell you why that's important. Now, the CRB absolutely needs the subpoena power because what it allows them to do is, for example, when a citizen complaint is filed against a crooked cop, the CRB will then be able to do their own investigation and collect information from its original source. Right now, what they're forced to do is get all of their information from the Tampa Police Department, which we all know that TPD is known to skew their evidence in their favor and will protect their own at all costs. And if you need receipts, just remember, TPD charged a whole bunch of protesters for inciting a riot when they were just exercising their First Amendment right. And if you don't believe me, Andrew Warren stated it himself. There was no real evidence supporting that claim, and Tampa Police Department knows this. Anyways, back to the CRB virtual workshop this past Thursday. Now, what I want you guys to know is that there is some pushback to the subpoena power thing, not only from outside organizations, but also from our own city attorneys. We'll start with the Police Benevolent Association, who wrote a letter to our city council members essentially threatening them, saying that they would be accessories to a misdemeanor if they were to have any insight of complaints against police officers. And our city's attorney, Gina Grimes, or really Mayor Castor's attorney, because it sounds like she's bending the law in Mayor Castor's favor, she argued that there's no ordinance for the city council to grant the CRB subpoena powers. She also went on to say that it doesn't make sense for city council to grant subpoena powers when they don't even have the full scope of subpoena powers themselves. But what Gina failed to mention was that just because there's no ordinance or it's not in the charter doesn't mean that city council can't amend an ordinance or change that. They have the right to amend ordinances. They vote on it, of course, and then they send it to the mayor, who can either say yes or no. And if she says no, city council still has the right to veto that decision. But Gina didn't want to mention that, did she? But luckily, we had some MVPs of this meeting who called bullshit. And one of them, I want to give a shout out to James Shaw. He's a local attorney. He's a citizen. He also sits on the board of ACLU. And he debunked basically all of these excuses. And he said that there's no reason why the Citizens Review Board can't have subpoena power. And James, he was nice with it. He brought receipts. He brought up a Supreme Court case. He had all the facts to back him. And basically, the city attorneys on the call weren't really able to answer that. And they ended up agreeing that they had to talk behind the scenes with their legal teams to decide whether, this is legal or not. Now, I don't know if y'all have noticed yet, but the law is kind of like the Bible, meaning you can read one line of scripture and understand it a certain way, right? And another person can look at that same line and interpret it to be something completely different. Now, some may argue the Bible is really straightforward or the law is really straightforward, but I know this is not true, and any attorney will tell you it's way more complicated than that. And the reason I gave that example is because in these next few weeks, when all this legal talk is going on behind the scenes, this could be a way for, these cities' attorneys and Mayor Castor to pick and choose laws that fit their agenda and to stop the CRB from getting subpoena power. Now, they are working with the ACLU and Tampa for Justice, so those organizations will be fighting our legal battles for us, per se. But now it's time for you and me to get it into gear and tell every single one of our council members that we want the CRB to have subpoena power. Because in these next few weeks, they're going to be hearing Tampa Justice and ACLU's side of it and all their laws to back it up, and then they're going to be hearing the city attorney's, argument to back up their agenda. So from there, they have to make a decision that represents the community. So we have to show up and let them know what the community wants. Now, I did want to mention, while I was watching the virtual meeting, by the tone and narrative of some of the council members, they were open to discussion, but they might vote no when it comes time to vote on the subpoena power. And two that come to mind are Councilman Vieira and Councilman Miranda. So please email and call them double the amount that you do the other council members. But subpoena power is just the tip of the iceberg of the changes that we need to see with the CRB. For example, Councilman Orlando Goods argued that there's too many police officers on the CRB and not enough citizens, and also it's not diverse enough. Another problem is that the mayor is the one that appoints the people who are on the CRB panel, which is a blatant conflict of interest because of how closely the mayor works with the police department. That is why city council should be the ones that pick who's on the CRB. And although I do appreciate our local government trying to move forward with new changes to the CRB, I want us to do it the right way, which is why I'm going to bring up one last problem that I have with it, and then I'm done. But the problem I have is that the CRB is only allowed to suggest disciplinary actions after the investigation is already closed. And at that point, what if the CRB has their own evidence to bring to the table? Are they allowed to use it? Probably not. But anyway, just some food for thought. Email those council members, call them. If you see them in public, sit them down, have a conversation. There will be a city council meeting this week on Thursday, 9 a.m. Tune in, it's virtual, and there you can use your voice as well. I do, before I sign off, want to express appreciation for how well the protest went this past week. There were no arrests, no injuries, no excessive force. I believe there was an arrest in Pasco County, but I think their police haven't gotten the word that we're not doing that anymore. But it seems as though TPD has backed off because they know it's going to bite them in the ass in the end, and the charges are going to get dropped by the state attorney. So that is great news for us protesters out there. But thank you so much, guys, for showing up to that, and I wish you the best in this upcoming week. And if you haven't yet, grab your ballot and take a look at the ballot breakdown series I've been doing this past week and get to know your candidates. Get to know who you're voting for, because at the end of the day, they're going to be representing you. And we don't want somebody like Jane Castor in an important seat ever again. So thank you guys for checking that out. Vote wise.